Okay, so let's get started. Uh, Yesterday we actually were able to do something constructive. We were able to actually start on the HTML side of things. We were able to build the entire uh, bare bones structure of this personal finance tracker. So that's what we actually did yesterday, and we were able to. Essentially we utilized HTML to actually build this finance structure. So this is the final product. But starting off, then this is what HTML can actually give us when it comes to web development. Okay, so we're able to get this up and running, and I think uh, in the previous video I was able to break this down into this small components, and then from those small components we're able to actually use HTML to come up with this sketch. Okay, now as you can see, this sketch is not quite visually, it's not quite appealing. Okay, so even if I'm going to deploy something like this, it's not going to work because visually it's not there. Uh, it's not something that one can maneuver through trying to understand what we are doing. Okay, that's where CSS actually comes in, and it helps us to actually style our websites, introducing colors, spacing, uh, organizing our stuff so that at least it becomes appealing, so that someone can actually understand what a website is actually talking about. Okay, through the various sections. Okay, now with color, adding color, some functionalities here and there. That's what we're going to do with CSS today. So today's session, as I've alluded, we'll be talking more about. It will be more of CSS, and today we are going to dive a little bit deeper to understand CSS and how we can actually style from this say bare structure up to something that looks appealing like this. Okay, with different cards, with these different sections, the headings, and all that. Okay, and also introduce some of these. As you can see, these cards, when you hover around, you can see there's some movement. Okay, so how can we actually introduce some of these um, functionalities? Okay, let's see what CSS can actually do for us today. Um, you seems my seems my okay, I think now I don't know if I've been okay. So I think I'm audible enough. So let's start the styling. So styling CSS. So I'm going to create a new file. New file style.css. So style.css, and then make sure that you are importing your style.css. Yeah, this one. So style.css. Make sure you're importing that uh, in your HTML. Okay. So for the CSS, it will be quite a lengthy. Uh, it will be quite lengthy, so I'm not going to write line by line because that will take us a lot of time to actually complete it. Okay, so uh, in future, maybe when we will be using TypeScript, I've learned something to do with TypeScript. So TypeScript actually enables us to actually minimize the code that we actually write when it comes to styling CSS. Okay, so but we're not there yet. So when that time comes, then we'll see how we can put TypeScript. Tailwind, I'm sorry, not TypeScript. Tailwind. So Tailwind enables us to actually write, enables us to reduce. I think on the amount of code we are going on the code that we're going to write when it comes to CSS. Okay, but we're not there yet. We need to be patient. We need to be relaxed on that. So when that time comes, again, we'll dive deeper, understand a little bit of TypeScript, how we can actually integrate TypeScript into our workflows and see how it actually enables us to minimize the code that we're going to write. Okay, but right now we are learning the basics, and so we need to first understand the basics. Then when that time comes, it will be easier for us to move. Okay, so let's start on the styling component. So now the styling. So as I said earlier, make sure that you have imported your style sheet so that we are able to grab the styles from so that the HTML is able to grab those styling components. So let's control. So let's start with this. So the first thing that I'm going to start, you're going to first reset all the defaults. So I'll just be pasting what I did so that we're able to move faster on this. So we are going to reset the default browser styles for consistency. So this one we're using, I think this one is a universal selector, and then we have the margin, padding, and the box sizing. So what you're doing is that previously, so I can do before and after. So previously, this was what our HTML actually looked like. Okay, before we actually introduced these styles. Okay, so there's some spaces between this. So there's some spaces. And then you can see these say the components of the components that actually stack one on top of the other. Okay, but so we want to reset. I can say these are the default values, so we need to reset that, and for that we can use the universal selector. So this one selects everything, and then it ensures that the margin is 0. So let's say if you use margin 100 pixels, so you can see that how our how it now changes to if we introduce the margin 100 pixels. Okay, so you can see everything is centered within your page, but now let's just set that to 0. Then for padding, let's try 100 pixels. So you'll see again how things change. So you can see there's some spaces between these entries. So that's about the padding. Okay. I'm just going to use again 0. So then the box for the box sizing. Then you can just specify the behavior of the width and height properties. Okay, so you can use the MDN reference. Quite complicated. You can just sizing. I think I've forgotten what. So for the box sizing, CSS box sizing properties defines how to calculate the width and height of an element. Should the calculation include padding and border? So controls how elements total width and height are calculated. So I think I'm forgetting this. There is the context box and the box sizing. So box sizing, the width and height properties include the content, padding, and the border, the entire border itself. Okay, but if you're going to use the context box, so if we define our maximum height and or width, then with the border box, it restricts every other element to that set height and width. But for the context box, this is usually the default, and the properties only apply to the content area. Padding and borders are added outside of this. Okay, so this one I think it's more of you're trying to limit. So with border box, if you set the width to 100 pixels and add a padding of 10 pixels, the element's total width remains 100. Yeah, remains 100 pixels. So, but for the content box, I think it will vary. So you're just going to sum what is the the if you have the margin, you're going to add the content. So the total width or height will be a summation of the entire content. Entire content meaning if you have the for example, the content itself, the left padding, maybe the right padding, uh, the margin, and so on. So those are the different. So, but for our case, we are going to use the border box. Okay, so if you, so that the border box. Okay. Then from here, we are going to now to include the root variable. So in if you're coming from, I think I'll use an analogy when it comes to Python, because that's the language that I've been using quite often. So from Python, we usually have functions. So when you create a function in Python, essentially what you're trying to say is that uh, I've created this function, and this function will be mostly used to, let's say, read a YAML file. So I've created a function, and this function I want to basically use this function to read any YAML file. Okay. So one option that you can do is every time you want to read the YAML file, you create a function to actually read the YAML file. Okay. And the other option you can have is to have a utility function, the read YAML file, the read YAML function, that whenever you want to read a YAML file, then you just call that function and it handles the task for you. Okay, so that's essentially what you're trying to apply here. Okay, because we are going to, because some of these stylings would be reusable. So instead of every time we create, every time we need to create this, maybe we use this type of color for this button. Okay, or if we have a text, we want it to have this font, something. Okay, so for us to actually prevent us rewriting that code over and over, we can just create such a case. So this is something like a function. So these are the root variables for consistent theming throughout the application. So these are the consistent themes that we're going to apply in our application. And instead of creating each and every time we want to apply, we can just have a central repository where all these stylings are in place, and then you can just be calling them whenever we want to apply that. Okay, so you can see we have the color palette, we have the spacing, we have the border radius, and we also have the typography. Okay, so instead of actually creating this over and over again, so what we can do is just create them once, and whenever we want to use a primary color or maybe success color, we have to. So it depends with the type, with the how you're going to actually how you're going to be naming this. Okay, so it varies a lot depending on your project that you're handling. So initially you have to sit down and maybe organize, say, okay, I'm creating such a component like this, and I want to style it like this. So what are the types, what are the colors, what are the spacing that I'm going to use for this component, all that. So you have to picture that first before you actually write the code itself. So once you have that in mind, then you can just come to the create the root. Then you just apply all your styles that you see that or you deem these styles can be reusable over and over again. Okay, so once you create that, so these are the styles that I'll be using. We have the primary color, uh, all sorts of colors. If you want maybe a warning, let's say someone does not include, or you can see in our application, these are must-haves. Okay, so you have to include this. So for example, if I say, let me skip the grocery shopping, and then let me input amount 100. Then I can set category. Let's say this is for utilities. Type income. Then I skip the date. Okay. So if I'm going to add the transaction, now I'm not able to add that transaction. Okay, because I'm missing some details. So I have to fill this grocery. I have to add, let's say, the amount. Select the category. Let's say this food and dining. Then for the type, this is an expense. Then the date, I can use the day to day. Then if I add the transaction, there's something. missing on this. But anyway, I can just okay. Supposed to be adding the transactions. It's no transaction. I'll just check on that. Maybe in the next time I can correct that. Okay. So there is an transaction. So this is all about the root variables for consistency, theming, and all that. So once we have that, we can proceed. So these are the typography font family, the types of fonts we are going to be using. Then this is the border radius, spacing, and all that. So you'll see how we are going to be calling these variables. Okay. Now let's go style the body. So let's go style the body itself. So the body, is body the type selector. Let me. So for the body, you can see now for the body font family. So instead of again, previously you could have maybe used the sans serif, maybe this roboto, whatever. So what we are doing is that we defined how we are going to the typography that we're going to use. So whenever we call the font family, you can just pass in this as a variable. Then it will take whatever information that this variable is housing. Then it can just use that as the font family. So we don't need to actually write this over and over again. Now for the background color, we have the background color that we defined earlier. So this is the background color. So for example, if I want to change this, let me change this to blue, okay, and see what will happen. Let's change this to a different color. Okay, you can see now, you're able to see now this one changes, okay? And we have not actually changed this color to green. So what it's doing, we're just copying this, just importing this from this one, background. Then it defines the background that we're going to be using in our application. So let me want the white background, okay? Then for the line height, this one you can specify. I think this one can vary from time to time. And then to prevent horizontal scroll on the mobile, horizontal scroll. So that for the horizontal scroll, this is, let's say, if you have a mobile phone, let me try to expand on this. So if you have a mobile phone, the horizontal scroll is the prevents. Let me try to change the. Let me use Samsung Galaxy. Okay. So the horizontal scroll is if you're moving along your along your x-axis from left to right. So as you can see, it's preventing you us from actually doing that because you're using a small screen. So, but if I change that, let me try to change. Let me try to just comment this. If you have a small screen, why mini surface in Pro Max. Okay. Transaction lost. But anyway, let's proceed. Prevent horizontal scroll. Maybe let me try with this one to see if that one is. Then we use seems need to work on the responsiveness of this. I think it's not there. It's not quite. But I'll work on that. Let's style then. When it comes to the responsiveness, we can do some little bit of changes here and there. Let's proceed. So that's the body. Then, so the body, we are styling the entire body itself, the entire body. Now from there, we can now move to this container. So you can see we are starting from wider, trying to narrow down all this. So class container. So this is the container. Just paste this. This is the container. So this is the main container. Centers content and adds a little bit of padding. So the max width for this container is 1200 pixels. And remember, we were using the border box size. Okay, so that means that whatever content that is going to be housed within this container, it means that this will be the maximum width. So that's the padding, the margin, the content, everything. Okay, will total up to a maximum of 1200 pixels. That means everything will readjust itself so that we're able to fit this width. Then the margin is 0 auto. Padding, you can see we are using the previous variable, this one here, so 1.5 rems. Then the minimum height ensures the footer stays at the bottom. So remember, we did have a footer. Let me close this. I think we did have a footer, this one here. So ensure we did this to ensure that the footer stays at the bottom. So we minimum height. Then the display is flex. So flex meaning that the flex direction is column. So column, remember previously we described this as form of a grid. Then we have 3 columns, and so for this we have the 3 columns, and this one we have the 2 columns. Okay, so that's what we are using the display to be flex. Then the flex direction is column. Now for the body, now let's head to the header section. So I'll just copy this in the header section. So if I think yesterday we talked about the semantic HTML. So when it comes to the semantic HTML, so we're dealing of the header section. So this is our header section. Let's see what it comprises of. So this is the header section. It has the personal finance tracker and the subtitle itself. So this is the header section. As you can see, we have now styled this. It's now at the text align is at center. So the entire width, then text align should be at the center. Then you're provided the margin button as well as the padding. Okay. Then for the header, this is the font size, the color for the header. So you can see the primary color for the header, this blue. So let's change the primary color to something else. Let's change that to let's say green also. You can see this one changes immediately, but we are not actually changing. We are not changing this. We are not changing the color itself. So that's how having some sort of, I'll say, the CSS function, okay, helps us to actually achieve this. So you're able to work around, maybe change. It will be easier to now style because you are for the colors and the margin, the spaces, and all that. It becomes easier for us to actually achieve that without going through each and every line in our code trying to change all those styling. Okay, so this is the header. This one should be, so this is the header and this is the subtitle. Okay. Then you can see between the finance tracker and the subheading, there's some there's some padding. Okay, margin. I think there's the margin bottom. Yeah, so there's the margin bottom that you have between this and this. So that's the now from there. Let's move to the summary card. So these are the summary cards. So again, you can just copy that, then explain what is happening in the summary cards. Press summary cards. You can just, so with the summary cards, you can now see we're able to style the summary cards and also apply the effect. So this effect, that means if you are hovering, you can see that it's it's moving along your y direction. Okay, so this is the summary. So for the summary card, background, as you, it's I think it's white, the white background. Then we have some padding, border radius. So you can see that the radius are the corners of the cards. They're a little bit curved, so that's the border radius. Then there's some box shadow. So you can see that the card seems to be floating. So that floating effect it's brought about by the box shadow. Then the text aligns at the center. So let's say if we align our text align, by default you can see that the text is on your left hand side, but you can change that to text align to be at the center. Text aligns at the center. Then there's the smooth transition for the hover effect. So this is the transforming that we are doing. So 2 seconds is then the box shadow. So you can see as we are hovering below, there is the, try to increase the font. So as you're hovering, you can see the shadow tends to be a little bit intense when you're hovering over this card. Okay. Then the hover effects card, so summary card hover. I think this is it inheritance, if I'm not wrong. Huh? So this is the transformation along the y-axis. Then this is the box shadow, how it's going to perform. Okay. Then summary card. So this is the income. So we are styling the income card. Then we are using the success color for that. So you can see the income, expense, all have a different colors. So expense has this danger color, a little bit reddish. Then for the income has the green color. Okay, so it's a little bit different. Then summary card H2. Let's see where this is located. So summary card. Now, this one, the total balance, total income, and the total expenses. Okay, so we are studying the total balance, income, and expense. So that's what we are doing under this section. Summary card H2. Summary card H2. Then that I think this one is it hierarchy. So we are starting with this summary card, then we are targeting the H2 summary card. Summary card. Summary card. Then you're targeting the. So that's it. Then a summary card amount, summary card income, summary card, then summary card dot expense amount. So that's how we are targeting all this. So summary card expense, okay, summary card balance, income, the expense. So that's the styling of the summary card. Then from here we can move to the main content. For the main content, just style that. This is the main content. So this is the main content. You can see for the main content you're using grid. Using grid. Then the two column layouts on the larger screen. So this is the grid template column. Then we're using the gap. So this is the spacing between the two grid. Then for the margin bottom, spaces below that. Then the flex grow. Now I also introduced the flex grow. So with this one ensures that the content actually fills the available space. So whatever space that remains, we are able to fill that. That means that for your transaction, maybe your transaction gets to a level X. Let's say it gets to this level, but your ad transaction maybe gets to this level, but your recent transactions, they grow and they try to fill the entire space. So what we are doing with this one is that we want all these to be on the same line. Okay, that's the main content. Then we can move to the form section. I think for the form section, we talked about this in length the previous tutorial where we are creating a form. So for the form section, so this is the form section. So again, you can see what we are doing with this. The form section, we are adding the transaction. So providing the background, padding, also the border radius and the border box. Then the height fit content, ensure that the form doesn't overflow on small screen. Okay, so these are some of the things that we need to ensure while we are doing our styling. Form section, then this is the form group. Let's see what we're targeting. The form group. These are the form group. The form group. These are the different inputs. So the description. In the form group, you have the amount and the different categories. Okay, so that's what we are styling with this. The form group. Then the form group label. So this one is to recognize this. So in CSS, when we say when you class selector, so class selector plus you can define this. The dot form. So form group is a structural container used. I'm missing. There's something I'm missing the word of how we usually call this. What is this? So this is the class selector. Then we pass in this. Okay, so it's label. Label is tag. So if we combine, so if what is the name? This is the name. What do we call? What do we call class selector and label? Class selector CSS used to target one or more HTML elements. Then maybe I can go back to my notes. Okay. So this is the label styling, the required field indicator. Okay. The form group. So input focus, select. So with these ones, focus state for the input for improvement of accessibility, then invalid input styling. So this is what we will actually include in this section. Then for the error message in terms when it comes to the styling component. Okay. Then after that, we can move to the buttons. We can move to this button. So the buttons. Again, style the buttons. You can see we have added the button styling. So you can see with the buttons we are targeting various things. So we have the button, the padding, the border radius, font size, font weight. Okay. Then prevents the button text from being selected. So if we are filling grocery, let's say amount, category, income, and pass in the data. Then the primary button, add transaction. This is the styling, the width 100%, so to occupy the entire space, available space. Then the background, the color for the text itself is white. Then the padding and the font size. Then when you are hovering, so these are the styles that you apply when hovering. Then when it's active, you can see there's that slight shift towards your y-axis. Then a danger button, a delete. So when you are after you have added the recent transactions, then if you want to delete a transaction, then this one will show up. Okay. Then the secondary button, so this is the edit, delete the transactions. A secondary button when you are doing the hovering. So how does it respond to that? Now we are going to the transaction section. Just copy the entire so that we can just move a little bit. In the transaction section, so we have the transaction list. So whenever we'll be adding the list, so once we click the add transactions, we'll be adding the transaction on this segment. Okay. Then the WebKit scroll bar. So whenever we are adding more transactions, we need to scroll to find the transactions. Okay. So these ones will apply for that. The transaction list. This is all about the scrolling and all that. Then for the individual transaction items that you're going to place on this section, so this is the styling for that. Display flex, justify content, space between, then align items toward the center, the padding and all that. So this will handle all the transaction items that will be displayed under this container. Then from there, I think, where should I move? Yeah. So some of these things we are going to just do. I'm just doing we're moving faster because unless we combine this with the HTML with the JavaScript, then we are able to see how these stylings will occur. So that's why I'm just doing a quick dive. Then when we handle or we tackle the issue to do with JavaScript. So when you add that functionality, then it will be easier for us to try and explain what is happening under this section. Okay, so you can just bear with me on this one. I know it's a lot of content, but just bear with me. So it will be easier if we now integrate JavaScript, then it will be easier to now explain whatever is happening. Okay, then from here we can go to the footer section. So this is the footer. Then for accessibility, the accessibility. So this one is for the screen readers. I think yesterday we talked about this. So we were trying to describe our different elements and all that. So for the accessibility and all that, this is what is going to be used. And then for the responsive design, you're using the media queries. And then you're defining for the tablet and smaller screens. Then we are providing what should be the maximum width, the main content, the header and all that. So for that, you're using the media queries for that. Then again, we will be adjusting the transactions, transaction items, how it's going to behave when we actually do all that. Okay. So then this one is for the small mobile phones. How are they going to actually interact? And then for some animations, these are the keyframes and all that you're going to be using when it comes to that. So essentially, this is about 500 lines of code. But for CSS, I think sometimes it's quite challenging because there's a lot of things that we need to grasp and understand. That's why maybe I think the Tailwind CSS comes in handy, because you will write a few lines of code and you're able to achieve more with the Tailwind CSS. Okay, but I think maybe today it was below par, but I'll understand. But I think tomorrow, when we include the JavaScript side of things, I'll try and elaborate what some of these things are doing. Okay, so once we add a transaction, once we delete a transaction, then it will be easier for us to move to our CSS, see that this whatever we are adding is behaving like this because of this, and this. Okay, so maybe bear with me. I might have moved a little bit faster on this, but that's it. That's it from. I will stop at this point. Maybe you can take time to go through this, so that tomorrow when we start on the JavaScript, it will be easier to combine everything at a go in one go, so that it becomes easier to understand where we are starting from. Why are we having this effect? We are having this effect because of this type of styling. So if you click this button, this happens because of A, B, C, and D. So that's what we are going to be covering tomorrow. Okay, so that's it for me today. I hope you had an interactive session, and let's meet tomorrow when we handle the JavaScript side of things. Okay, so subscribe to the channel if you're new join us every day for these learning sessions. So this is a challenge for the data scientist. Maybe this is your opportunity to actually learn something to do with web development. Okay, so that's it for me. See you in the next